They are not informing their employees of the new regulations and thus will not be ready to operate under a gold banking charter. Slowly, the illegal practices of the international financiers are coming to an end. One by one, the major banking houses are imploding right before our eyes. Their train wreck is occurring because these banks are no longer allowed to use assets from the collateral accounts of the global debt facility to back up their loans. This is why we are seeing the derivatives implode. The banks have been illegally using the collateral accounts as collateral for their gold-backed derivatives, bullion certificates, and bonds sold through offshore domiciled corporations. With the new Basel II rules in place, these paper assets have now become worthless garbage, resulting in the massive banking write-downs you see today. According to the Office of International Treasury Control, this over-the-counter derivative market is worth about $3.3 quadrillion, with J.P. Morgan leading the pack with hundreds of trillions of dollars of derivatives. During the Clinton years, the banking 1 to 10 fractional reserve ratio was increased to 1 to 100. This easy money allowed anyone to get a home loan, resulting in the housing sector boom. Since many of these loans were made to risky low-income households, the banks deferred their risk by selling their loan portfolios to investors in a process known as securitization. This occurs when mortgages are repackaged with other mortgages in a giant pool of liquidity, which are sold to investors on the global market. These credit derivatives can then be repackaged and leveraged again at another 1 to 100 ratio, which is then repeated over and over until there is literally quadrillions of dollars of derivatives floating around in the world's banking system. When housing prices were going up, these derivatives were making fortunes for the banks and the government's offshore accounts, allowing them to buy up assets all over the world with virtually free money. When investors realized these derivatives contained toxic loans, they stopped their buying binge, causing the credit market to seize up, which is why housing prices are in freefall. Because no one wants to buy these toxic derivatives, the banks and government are now in a panic to find other people's money to plug up the holes in their cracking dam. Though some funds have been raised by either selling military secrets to China or through CIA drug-running operations, this is nowhere near enough money to prop up a collapsing derivative market. So now, the government is resorting to stealing the money, which is no credible way to run a country. To put a stop to this criminal activity, in December 2009, Interpol was given legal jurisdiction within the U.S. to hunt down and arrest corrupt bankers. April 4, 2008, marked the expiration of the 70-year bankruptcy agreement of the United States, beginning in 1938. Technically, the bankruptcy began in 1933, but the Supreme Court did not enforce it until the United States became a legislative democracy in 1938. The nations of the world, weary of the shenanigans of the Federal Reserve System, knew they had a limited time to foreclose on the United States before the corporate government could extend another 70-year extension of the bankruptcy. Without this protection, the government was now at the mercy of its creditors, who were demanding reforms of the banking system, such as higher net capital requirements found under Basel II. If the United States failed to meet their demands, they would be cut off from international markets. So to raise the funds needed, in August 2008, the U.S. government began shorting the derivative market, causing stock and commodity prices to fall worldwide. But this $20 trillion of wealth was not destroyed. Instead, it was transferred into the government's offshore pension fund accounts, of which $5 trillion was moved back into the United States to shore up a collapsing dollar. Soon, this money will run out, leaving the option of either crashing the financial markets once again, destroying what little is left of the American economy, or by printing more money, leading to hyperinflation. But the global family does not want to see a devalued dollar, as 90% of all U.S. dollars in circulation today are held by foreigners, and they have no desire to see their assets evaporate. So they have agreed to back all dollars printed before September 2008 with gold stored in the Philippines at a rate of 1/28 of a gram of gold per dollar. This would serve to curb the inflationary activities of the Federal Reserve and the assets of the hard-working average American. But on the other hand, all derivatives will be valued at 1/3 of 1%, which is their fair market value, forcing those who own this toxic trash into bankruptcy and finally out of business. On September 30th, 2009, the fiscal year of the United States came to a close. Because of the precarious financial situation of the United States and its derivative holdings, the Chinese government reversed its policy of accepting fiat money for repayment of the national debt. So instead, they will only accept gold and silver as lawful payment, as specified in Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution. To meet these new demands, the owners of the Federal Reserve System are scrambling to purchase enough gold and silver, but no one wants to sell them any. While the Federal Reserve System is falling apart, Barry Cerrito continues to block the Nassara deliveries. Even though he never invested any money in these programs, he demands a portion of these funds for himself. In a pattern which mimics the Bush years, the Obama administration continues to make numerous daily attempts to steal the funds. But before he was even sworn in office, in December 2008, Obama tried unsuccessfully to steal $400 billion from the Prosperity Funds and demanded another $1 trillion ransom for his deed. A week before his inauguration, Saint Germain and the Global family had confronted Obama about his actions. At that time, Obama agreed to go along with the Nassara mission, but soon after reversed his promise and has now solidified his alliance with the Bush-Clinton cabal.
Our economy is badly weakened, a consequence of greed and irresponsibility on the part of some, but also our collective failure to make hard choices and prepare the nation for a new age.
In March 2009, Obama tried once again to steal over $200 trillion of international funds from the Bank of International Settlements. This money was originally stolen by the Nazis from Holocaust victims and for the past 60 years have been earning interest in secret bank accounts. When Obama was informed that the theft of the international funds was an impeachable offense, he replied, "You can't touch me, I'm above it. We knew where it was, so we took it." As the largest holder of the national debt, the Chinese government is now in control of the United States economy, its grain supply, and its communist president, which is why Chinese President Hu does not want to see Nassara announced. Otherwise, it would negate this cushy arrangement. In May 2009, Obama sought help from the Chinese government to hack into some of the trust accounts overseas. Had Obama been successful, China would have received a $4 trillion payout for the cooperation. Thankfully, the White Knights located the money and is now in a safe place. So who is really benefiting from a Chicago Olympics?
Well, Valerie Jarrett's former businesses benefit. Habitat, which manages hundreds and thousands of apartments throughout Chicago, not only on behalf of the government, but on behalf of other developers.
In anticipation of the proposed Chicago Olympics site, Obama had committed to buy several $100 million of property in the surrounding area with borrowed money from the U.S. Treasury. He then promised to pay a huge bribe to the International Olympic Committee using stolen money from the Prosperity Funds. When he arrived empty-handed after failing to access the accounts, they immediately threw out Chicago out of the running, and now Obama is stuck with a bunch of worthless slumland and a huge debt to the U.S. Treasury. In another incident, Obama demanded 58% of the program money to be paid to him in his personal bank account, with the rest of the money to be taxed at a rate of 65%. Both the Queen of England, President of France Nicolas Sarkozy, and German Chancellor Angela Merkel agreed to these terms. And why not? After all, it's not their money they're giving away. The Queen of England has also participated in this sabotage. She has placed secret override codes into these banking computers, which allow her ladyship and Obama to move this money around and around until hell freezes over, awaiting the time until they can figure out how to access these funds. To garner the cooperation of Bush Sr. and Obama, the Global family offered to pay 0.5% for all their fraudulent derivatives and warehouses of stolen loot in exchange for the new gold-backed U.S. Treasury currency. This offer was turned down, and a new offer was made.
I gotta stop there again, guys. Okay, we got Bush Sr. on, well, the left. He's dead now. This is a pretty old show. He definitely had something to do with Kennedy. He was there. He's the only guy in the world that didn't know where he was, which was in a Masonic lodge, giving a speech when Kennedy was shot. But anyhow, here you got now his kid. We're looking at two Republicans. We got Bill over there on the right, and I was going to intervene there earlier, how Bill Clinton isn't in jail, because Bill Clinton, David Wynn Miller, he's another guy to look up on the internet. David Wynn Miller, that's dead now, deceased, another patriot, killed up in Canada. David Wynn Miller was a lawyer on the team for Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton's immunity, whether he raped people or Bill and Hillary killed people in the Whitewater scandal and Vince Vaughn, and oh my gosh, just try looking up the crimes of Mena, Arkansas. But anyhow, the point being here is it doesn't matter, guys. Republican or Democrat, we can go on for days and days. They're all the same. Republican or Democrat, they're all raping us. They've all stolen your children's wealth. Let this be a lesson right here for bipartisanship, man. Don't vote another Republican or another Democrat into office. Just saying, guys, they've got us so polarized. Napoleon said it best, never interrupt the enemy with war while he's fighting amongst himself. They've got us fighting like cats and dogs, males against females, doggone Republicans against Democrats. I didn't vote for Trump. I voted against Hillary. You know, there's enough corruption on both sides. We got to make a change for our kids. I'm sorry, guys. There's only about 3 minutes left of this, but...
At 2.5%, with Obama getting 2.5% of that. Even though these percentages may appear to be small, they are based on quadrillions of dollars, so we are talking enormous amounts of money. This offer was also refused, and now they are demanding 100% exchange along with agreement to escape exposure and prosecution. This offer was flatly turned down.
I didn't choose to tackle this issue to get some legislative victory under my belt. And by now, it should be fairly obvious that I didn't take on healthcare because it was good politics.
To pay for the United States health.
Back to the Bill Clinton deal I didn't finish. David Wynn Miller was his lawyer, but Bill escaped all prosecutions. Hillary, too. They'll never, ever put him in jail. Give up, Republicans. It's never going to happen. Why? Because Bill threatened in front of basically the Supreme Court, threatening to put on the record that he would expose to the American public what the definition of a dollar is. Now, unless you do a little research into that, there's a coffee bean case back out of Michigan where a guy paid his bill with 100 coffee beans because of the definition of a dollar. So there's another little Easter egg for you guys. Look up the definition of a dollar. That's why Bill Clinton and Hillary will never go to jail, because they don't want the American public knowing what the word dollar means. Like Bill said, it all depends on what is. God, I hate that line. As a lawyer, it makes me want to puke. Sorry, guys.
Healthcare bill. Obama attempted to raise $44.5 trillion through the sale of a healthcare revenue anticipation bond in Switzerland with a 35-year term collateralized by the Freedom Bankroll program. Of this, $42 trillion was to go to Obama personally, and the other $2.5 trillion will pay for the government's takeover of healthcare. The only problem is, Obama had the signatures forged, along with a few senior Democratic senators and congressmen who are now demanding his impeachment. When Swiss authorities realized the signatures were forged, they proceeded to turn over the evidence to the International Court of Justice. Obama tried to block this action through an executive order, but no one seems to be paying it much attention.
It's not true.
The reason Obama won...
Sorry, guys, gotta stop again. I went in front of my city council when Obama was 8 years that I had to put up with Obama. One of the first executive orders he signed, and I don't have it here with me, but I'll look it up. I read it in front of the city council, and he signed an executive order stating that if you're somebody like me that supports the Constitution or a militia member or, pro-life or blah, 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 that if you were suspected of domestic terrorism, that you, your wife and children, it would be okay to torture them to get information out on someone that belongs to Oath Keepers or someone that supports the Constitution. And I told the city council, I said, hey, look, the Three Rivers Militia, our local militia, would never, ever harm a woman or a child to get information against, say, a cop or the military. Never be done, not in a million years. We're husbands, we're fathers, we're grandfathers, we're not friggin' terrorists. My point being here, once again on a ramble, is I put up with 8 years of Obama. If me as a right-wing Republican, that's where I hide out. I'm actually a libertarian, but I hide out in the Republican Party because it's safe. If nothing else, they'll want my body for experimentation, trying to figure out why it's not aging. Anyhow, if I would have ever uttered anything about Obama, anything derogatory, the FBI would have picked me up so quick. But now turn around years later and we elect Donald Trump, and every flippin' practicing witch you can go on the internet, including Madonna and Hillary. Hillary was involved in this. You can go research this, people. All got together to cast a spell to cause Donald Trump to die. Now, if I'd ever organized anything like that against Obama, being a white, middle-aged man, dude, you'd never seen me again in Reedsport at all. But yet, all these snowflakes, all these Democrats, oh no, they'll speak ill on Donald Trump. I'm not a big fan, but you don't wish death on anybody. So Democrats, straighten your own up. You're as bad as the cops. If there were any good cops, they'd arrested all the bad cops. If there were any good Democrats, they'd have ran out or cleaned up their own Democratic. Same way with the Republicans. They've been taken over by the Nazi Party. Have I not pissed anybody else off yet? Wait till my next one on Christians. Here we go, guys. 2 minutes left.
Wanted $42 trillion is because he has been borrowing money heavily from the banks in order to bribe anyone who dares to oppose him. These loans are collateralized using forged signatures of Prosperity Program recipients in their corresponding bank trades. This loan money is then used to bribe World Court judges to look the other way. But because the White Knights are blocking these transactions, Obama is going deeper and deeper into debt. The banks are starting to realize a trap is being set for them, but sadly, it's too late. There is no way they can recover from these mega loan losses. They may think they can simply destroy evidence of these transactions and hope the problem goes away, but luckily, duplicates can be found through state auditors. When Obama is confronted with these criminal actions, his typical response is, as long as I am the president, which will be for another 12 or 18 years or whatever I decide because I am the ruler, you will never get this money, and eventually I will get all of it, one way or another. When referring to the American people, Obama was quoted as saying, they are scum and trash, and they do not need or deserve this money. One source has even quoted him as saying, I am king, I am God. Obama's arrogance may stem from the plans of George Bush Sr. and the Thule Society to crown Obama as a God King under a 1,000-year Reich beginning in 2012. For these reasons, the White Knights have ordered Obama to submit his resignation papers if he wishes to avoid treason. But Obama simply laughs it off and replies, you can't charge me. Besides, the House and Senate will never go along with it because they are just as guilty as I am. He then continues to insist the funds are his to do as he pleases, as he is the ruler of this country. The longer Obama remains in office, the closer America teeters on economic collapse. Personal income tax collections are down 40%, and for corporations, 67%. Housing values have dropped 80% in some areas. Farmers are having a hard time getting a loan to plant new crops, which means many innocent people could pay with their lives. While the United States economy implodes, the government continues to borrow trillions of dollars to fund pet projects and bail out failed business models such as GM and Chrysler. The government debts generated from these bailouts are flooding the bond market, making it even harder for the private sector to get a loan to survive. These actions are also hyperinflationary, which would ultimately lead to a collapsing dollar and higher prices for Americans. The banks, now fresh with slush money from their bailouts and bonuses, could care less if the economy comes crashing down. In December 2008, access to credit card lines was reduced from $5 trillion to $3 trillion. Sadly, this lifeline is being cut off from the American people at a time when they are losing their jobs. In preparation for economic collapse in the New World Order, Obama has now increased preparedness for martial law, which under Rex 84 would send millions of patriotic Americans to concentration camps. Should this occur, the White Knights are prepared to take strong actions to protect the American people. Whether the Nasara transition is peaceful or not, God has mandated the common man will not suffer. The dark side's plans for mass vaccinations, martial law, or nuclear war will end in utter failure, and those who cooperated with such schemes would descend into the ash heap of history. The peoples of the world are now becoming aware of these grievances. Queen Elizabeth and the Crown of England have both gone too far with their crown power. Third world nations, such as Malaysia, would no longer allow the International Monetary Fund to rape their assets. African and South American nations, once devastated